The envelope was cream-colored, lined with gold trim, the kind that screamed elegance and importance. It lay on my kitchen counter, daring me to open it. I knew what it was before I even tore it open. And when my eyes landed on the words, "You are cordially invited," my stomach twisted into knots. A wedding invitation. His wedding. The man who once promised me forever. The man who left me in pieces. The man who had the audacity not just to move on, but to invite me to watch him marry someone else. It wasn't just salt in the wound. It was pouring acid over it. Before I go further, let me introduce myself. My name is Clara Hayes and I'm 30 years old. I once thought love was supposed to be about loyalty, honesty, and trust. But after what I endured, I learned that sometimes love is just the mask betrayal wears before it takes everything from you. In this story, it isn't about heartbreak. It's about revenge. So stick with me because what started with a cream-colored envelope ended with a wedding toast no one in that ballroom will ever forget. Don't forget to like this story, subscribe for more true-to-life drama, and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. Because you won't believe what happened when I finally picked up that microphone. I stared at the invitation for hours, my hands trembling, my chest aching with memories I had tried so hard to bury. His name was printed in bold, intertwined with hers in scripted cursive that seemed to mock me. Ethan Reynolds and Amanda Clark. The name felt like a dagger. Because Amanda wasn't just anyone. She had been our friend. The girl who smiled at me across coffee tables, who asked me for relationship advice, who swore she would never betray girl code. Now she was marrying the man who once whispered forever in my ear. I couldn't stop the memories from flooding back. The late-night drives when Ethan swore he couldn't live without me. The mornings when he brought me coffee in bed, kissing my forehead like I was his entire world. The day he promised, "I'll never hurt you, Clara. You're everything to me." Lies. Because the whole time Amanda was in the background, smiling with secrets I never saw. At first I wanted to throw the invitation in the trash, set it on fire, erase it like I wished I could erase the scars Ethan left. But as I sat there staring at the elegant lettering, something shifted inside me. A spark. Because what better stage for justice than the very altar where they planned to celebrate their betrayal? For the next few days I couldn't think about anything else. My friends told me not to go. "Clara, you'll only hurt yourself," Maya insisted. Why give him the satisfaction? But it wasn't about him anymore. It was about me. I had spent years silenced by his lies, humiliated by his betrayal. And now the universe had handed me an audience. Hundreds of people gathered to celebrate their love story. What they didn't know was that it wasn't a love story at all. It was a fraud. And I was the only one who could pull the curtain back. So I said yes. I RSVP'd with calm fingers and a steady smile, my heart pounding with both dread and anticipation. Not because I wanted to see Ethan. Not because I wanted to see Amanda in white. But because I knew I was walking into their carefully curated fairy tale with the one thing they feared most. The truth. And the truth has a way of ruining fairy tales. I spent the next few weeks preparing, not just my outfit but my resolve. I knew there would be whispers when I walked into that ballroom. I knew Amanda would fake a smile, Ethan would tighten his jaw, and guests would wonder why the ex-girlfriend was there at all. Good. Let them wonder. Because the real question wouldn't be why I came. The real question would be why I stood up when the champagne glasses clinked and the microphone was passed for toasts. And why, instead of offering congratulations, I offered revelation. As I folded the invitation back into its envelope, I whispered to myself, "You wanted me here, Ethan? Fine. But this time I won't be the woman you leave broken. I'll be the woman who leaves you in ruins." And in that moment my decision was sealed. I was going to the wedding. Not as a guest. But as the reckoning. They say hindsight is 20/20. But sometimes even when you look back you still can't believe how blind you were. That's how it felt when I thought about Ethan Reynolds. We met in the most ordinary way at a bookstore downtown. I was reaching for the same novel he was, our hands brushing on the cover, and he smiled like it was fate. He made some joke about sharing custody of the book, and I laughed, charmed by his easy confidence. It wasn't fireworks at first. It was warmth. Like a fire slowly catching. He called me that same night, asking if I wanted to grab coffee. And from there it was as if my life fell into rhythm with his. Dinners that lasted until the restaurants closed. Walks through Washington Park where he always carried my jacket when the wind picked up. Promises whispered under the Denver skyline. He wasn't just a boyfriend. He was a dream made flesh. Or so I thought. Amanda was part of our circle from the beginning. She was witty, easygoing, the kind of friend who slid naturally into everyone's lives. I liked her, trusted her, invited her into our dates sometimes, because Ethan insisted she was like a sister to him. Looking back, the signs were there. The way Amanda laughed a little too long at his jokes. The way Ethan's eyes lingered on her when he thought I wasn't looking. The way conversations grew quieter when I entered the room. But love makes you blind, and trust makes you deaf. So I ignored the whispers of doubt. Ethan and I built a future together. Or at least I thought we did. He talked about buying a house in the suburbs. About kids. About family vacations. About growing old together. I clung to those dreams, painting them in my mind until they felt real. So when the breakup came, it felt like the world split open beneath me. It wasn't even a slow unraveling. It was sudden. Brutal. One night after dinner, he sat across from me with an expression I didn't recognize. Cold. Distant. "Clara," he said, his voice almost rehearsed, "this isn't working anymore. You deserve someone who can give you what you want. And that's not me." Just like that. No warning. No explanation. Just an eviction notice from the life we'd built. I cried for weeks. My apartment felt like a coffin filled with memories. His cologne on a sweater, his handwriting on sticky notes, his toothbrush still in the bathroom. I kept asking myself what I had done wrong. And then the truth trickled in. First through whispers from friends. Then through photos on social media. Ethan wasn't single. He was with Amanda. The same Amanda who had been like a sister. The same Amanda who had shared drinks with me, laughed with me, hugged me. Betrayal has a sound. It's the shattering of trust, the sharp crack of your world breaking apart. And I heard it every time I saw their smiling faces online. I tried to move on. I went on dates. I traveled. I painted, wrote, filled my life with anything that wasn't him. But no matter what I did, the scars remained. And now, months later, his wedding invitation sat in my hands. Proof that my scars weren't just reminders of the past. They were about to be reopened in the present. At first, I wondered why they even invited me. Was it arrogance? Did they want to flaunt their happiness in my face? Or did they think I'd sit quietly in the pews, clapping politely while they celebrated the empire they built on my broken heart? Whatever their reason, it didn't matter. Because their mistake was underestimating me. I began to replay every moment in my head. The lies, the laughter, the betrayal. And the more I replayed them, the more the pain hardened into something sharper. Resolve. If they wanted me at their wedding, I'd be there. But not as the broken woman Ethan left behind. I'd be there as the reckoning. In the quiet of my apartment, I stood in front of the mirror and studied myself. The Clara who cried herself to sleep? Gone. The Clara who believed every word Ethan said? Dead. The Clara who would walk into that wedding? Reborn. And when I took the microphone for the toast, I wouldn't just be speaking to them. I'd be speaking to every person who ever underestimated me. Because this time I wasn't going to be the victim of their story. I was going to be the author of their ending. The wedding date circled on my calendar like a scar I couldn't erase. At first I told myself I wouldn't go. That I would throw the invitation into the trash, block their numbers, and never give them the satisfaction of seeing me again. But the thought lingered, clawing at me in quiet moments. What if I went? Not as the broken woman they expected. Not as the silent witness to their fairy tale. But as the truth teller. For weeks I wavered. One part of me screamed to stay home to protect myself. The other whispered that this was my chance. My moment to turn humiliation into justice. And slowly the whisper grew louder. Because the more I thought about Ethan and Amanda standing before their guests, smiling like saints, the more I realized silence would make me their accomplice. And I refused to be part of their lie. The decision crystallized one night when I was scrolling through social media. A post popped up, a photo of Amanda, glowing in a bridal boutique, captioned, "Can't wait to marry my soulmate in just a few weeks." The comments were filled with heart emojis, congratulations, people gushing about their perfect love story. Perfect. That word hit me like a stone. Because behind their perfect smiles was my pain, erased, rewritten as though I had never existed. And I couldn't let them get away with it. That was when the idea of the toast came to me. Not a screaming match in the parking lot. Not a drunken outburst halfway through the vows. No. A toast. Polished. Elegant. Devastating. A weapon disguised as a celebration. Once the idea took root, I began to prepare. I pulled out my old journals, the ones where I had scribbled late-night confessions about Ethan, where I had poured out my confusion and heartbreak when he left. Each page was a reminder of the lies he had told me. I went through photos, the trips we had taken, the dinners, the little notes he had left for me that proved just how entwined our lives had once been. And then I pulled out the screenshots. The messages Amanda had sent me back when she was still pretending to be my friend. The ones where she asked me for advice about her dating life, while already sneaking around with Ethan. Proof of betrayal written in her own words. Holding those receipts in my hands, I felt something shift. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about justice. For the Clara who had been humiliated. For the woman they thought would stay silent. For the truth they had buried under champagne and smiles. When the day came to RSVP, I clicked yes with steady hands. I bought a dress. Not flashy, not attention-seeking, but sharp enough to turn heads. Deep emerald green, a color that carried weight, elegance, and quiet defiance. I booked an appointment at the salon, planning every detail of how I would look. Not for Ethan. Not for Amanda. But for myself. Because when I walked into that ballroom, I wanted every eye on me to see not a victim, but a woman who had survived fire and come out sharper than steel. And in the quiet of my room that night, I rehearsed my toast. Calm, steady, precise. A story disguised as a blessing. A truth wrapped in a smile. The kind of toast that would start with laughter and end with silence. And when I set down the microphone, I would leave them not with applause, but with the ruins of the empire they had tried to build on my broken heart. The decision was made. I wasn't just going to the wedding. I was going to end it. The day of the wedding arrived cloaked in the kind of sunshine that feels staged. The sky was a perfect blue. The air warm but not oppressive, every detail screaming picture perfect. It was the kind of day couples pray for when they imagine their happily ever after. But beneath the flawless skies I carried a storm. The venue was a sprawling hotel ballroom draped in white and gold. Chandeliers sparkled overhead, tables glittered with crystal glasses, and waiters floated gracefully between guests carrying trays of champagne. I paused at the entrance, taking a breath as the eyes of strangers flicked toward me. Some smiled politely. Others whispered. I could feel Amanda's gaze across the room, sharp, assessing, and Ethan's jaw tightening when he saw me. I smiled. A small, knowing smile that said, yes, I came. And I'm not here to play by your script. Amanda looked radiant in her lace gown, her veil trailing like a river of light. Ethan stood beside her in a tailored suit, the image of composure. But as I watched him, I remembered the man who once held my hand in bookstores, who whispered promises under city lights, who shattered me with betrayal. He wasn't composed. He was a fraud wearing a suit. The ceremony passed in a blur. Vows exchanged, rings slipped on, guests dabbing tears from their eyes. They kissed, the crowd erupted in applause, and for a moment I wondered if I was insane for being there at all. But then I remembered the screenshots, the lies, the months of humiliation. And my resolve hardened. Dinner was served, courses flowing one after the other, glasses clinking with laughter. I sat at my assigned table, half listening to conversations, biding my time. Because I knew the moment was coming. The toast. When the microphone began to circulate, my heart pounded. Best men cracked jokes, maids of honor reminisced, parents wept with pride. And then, almost too casually, the mic landed in my hand. I stood slowly, feeling the weight of every eye in the room. Ethan stiffened. Amanda's smile froze. I raised my glass. To Ethan and Amanda, I began, my voice steady. A love story, truly one for the books. Polite laughter trickled through the crowd. I smiled wider. I should know. After all, I was there for the first chapters. Gasps rippled. Ethan's eyes darted to mine, silently pleading. Amanda's knuckles whitened around her bouquet. I went on. I remember when Ethan and I used to sit in Washington Park talking about our dreams. He promised me forever once. Just like he promised Amanda now. I believed him. I trusted him. Until I realized forever meant. Until someone else came along. A stunned hush fell over the room. I pulled my phone from my clutch, clicking the screen to life. See, Amanda was more than a friend. She was family to me. The kind of friend you share secrets with, the kind of friend you never imagine would betray you. I held up the phone, scrolling to the screenshots, Amanda's own words glowing under the chandelier light. I don't know what to do. Ethan says he loves me, but Claire is still in the picture. A ripple of murmurs. Promise you won't hate me if I tell you. I think I've fallen for him. Gasps. A hand over mouth. A glass shattering against the floor. And then silence. Amanda's face crumpled, tears spilling down her cheeks. Ethan's mask shattered, his composure slipping into sheer panic. I lowered the phone, lifting my glass higher. So here's my toast, I said, my voice calm, cutting through the silence. To Ethan and Amanda. May your marriage be built on the same foundation as your relationship. Lies, betrayal, and broken promises. And may you both find out what it feels like to be left in ruins. I set my glass down, the sharp clink echoing in the stunned ballroom. The silence held for a beat too long until chaos erupted. Amanda dropped her bouquet, sobbing uncontrollably as bridesmaids rushed to her side. Ethan stammered, reaching for her, only for her to shove him away with shaking hands. Guests whispered fiercely, eyes darting between the three of us. A few looked at me with sympathy. Most stared at Ethan with disgust. And in that storm of whispers and broken vows, I walked away from the microphone, my head held high. I didn't look back at Ethan. I didn't need to. Because I knew the truth. The fairy tale they had built had crumbled, and I was the one who lit the match. The ballroom erupted like a storm breaking its dam. One moment, guest had been smiling, glasses raised in celebration. The next, the air was thick with gasps, whispers, and the jagged sound of Amanda's sobs echoing beneath the chandeliers. Her mascara streaked down her cheeks as she shoved Ethan's hands away, her cries raw and unrestrained. You lied to me, she screamed, her voice cutting through the crowd like a blade. Every head turned toward them. Every mask of polite joy dissolved into shock, pity, and disgust. Ethan stammered, his polished composure unraveling in real time. Amanda, please. This isn't what it looks like. Amanda's face twisted with betrayal. Not what it looks like. Her screenshots, your words, your promises. She broke off into sobs, clutching her veil as though it might shield her from the humiliation. Guests whispered fiercely at their tables. Did you hear what she read? All along with her friend? Unbelievable. The carefully constructed fairy tale was collapsing, brick by brick, under the weight of truth. I sat down at my table, calm amidst the chaos. My wine glass trembled slightly in my hand, not from regret, but from the adrenaline of finally speaking what had been buried for so long. Across the room, Ethan's parents exchanged horrified glances. His mother pressed her lips together, her eyes glistening. His father muttered something harsh under his breath, shaking his head like he'd just witnessed his empire burn. Maybe he had. The best man tried to lighten the moment, standing awkwardly with the microphone. Maybe we should all just... Amanda ripped the mic from his hand, her voice shaking but loud. No. Everyone needs to hear this. I built my future on a lie. I thought I was marrying a man who loved me. Instead, I was marrying a liar who stole me from the one person who trusted me most. Her voice cracked, her sobs returning, but the damage was done. Every guest knew. Every secret was exposed. Ethan turned toward me then, his eyes wide with something between rage and desperation. Claire, why would you do this? Why ruin everything like this? I met his gaze, steady, unflinching. I didn't ruin anything, Ethan. You did. I just refused to let you hide it anymore. His jaw clenched, his face flushed red as though he might explode. But no words came. For once, Ethan Reynolds had no story to spin, no lie to save him. Amanda's bridesmaids crowded around her, trying to comfort her as she tore off her veil, her sobs shaking her frame. Her mother rushed forward, her face pale with shame, pulling her daughter into her arms. Meanwhile, Ethan stood alone. No one moved to help him. No one defended him. Not even his closest friends. And in that isolation I saw his empire crumble in real time. The rest of the evening dissolved into chaos. Guests left in waves, some whispering apologies to Amanda, others shooting glares at Ethan. The champagne soured, the music fell silent, and the perfect wedding dissolved into a battlefield of betrayal. Amanda retreated into a side room with her family, her sobs muffled but still audible. Ethan stood near the head table, his tie loose, his hair disheveled, his carefully polished mask gone. Then I slipped my clutch onto my shoulder, finished the last sip of my wine and rose. No drama. No scene. Just quiet victory. Because revenge isn't always about screaming louder. Sometimes it's about watching silence consume the person who once thought they owned you. As I walked toward the exit, I passed Ethan. He reached out, his voice hoarse. Claire, wait. Don't do this. Don't leave me like this. I stopped, met his desperate eyes, and whispered so only he could hear. You left me a long time ago. I'm just returning the favor. Then I walked out of the ballroom, the heavy doors closing behind me with a satisfying finality. That night, as I lay in my bed, the echoes of chaos still ringing in my ears, I realized something. It wasn't just Amanda whose world had collapsed. It was Ethan's. Because for a man like him, image was everything. And I had torn it apart in front of everyone who mattered to him. And that was a ruin no amount of lies could rebuild. The morning after the wedding, Denver buzzed with whispers. The society pages that had promised to feature Ethan and Amanda's storybook celebration ran with a different headline instead. Wedding ends in scandal. Secrets exposed during reception. I didn't even need to buy a paper to know. My phone lit up with messages from mutual friends, acquaintances, even distant relatives who had heard the story through the grapevine. Some were sympathetic. Some were shocked. Some admitted they'd always suspected Ethan wasn't the man he pretended to be. But all of them agreed on one thing. No one would forget what happened at that wedding. 4 days, Amanda's face haunted the gossip columns. The radiant bride turned betrayed woman, her makeup smeared, her veil torn. I should have felt pity. And maybe a small part of me did. But pity didn't erase the fact that she had been a willing accomplice to my heartbreak long before she became his victim. And Ethan? His name became a curse. The colleagues who once praised him now kept their distance. His clients hesitated. His carefully polished reputation had shattered under the weight of truth, and I was the one who had delivered the final blow. But the greatest satisfaction didn't come from gossip or headlines. It came from silence. The silence of no more texts, no more lies, no more pretending. The silence of knowing I had finally told my story in front of the one audience that mattered most. The people who once believed his lies. And that silence was louder than any applause could ever be. Weeks passed. My life began to settle into something new. Something lighter. I moved forward with quiet confidence, no longer haunted by the what-ifs of my past. I started running again in Washington Park, the same paths Ethan and I once walked. This time there was no ghost of him beside me, no memory dragging me down. Just me, my breath steady, my feet pounding against the pavement in rhythm with my own heartbeat. I began painting again, filling canvases with colors that reflected strength instead of sorrow. And for the first time in years, when I looked in the mirror, I saw Clara Hayes. Not Ethan's girlfriend. Not Ethan's victim. Just me. Whole. One evening, Maya joined me for dinner at my apartment. She raised her glass of wine with a grin. To you, she said, her eyes shining. The bravest woman I know. I laughed softly, clinking my glass with hers. To freedom. Do you ever regret it? She asked. I thought about it. About Amanda's tears, Ethan's pleading eyes, the chaos I had left behind. And then I shook my head. No. I don't regret telling the truth. I don't regret reclaiming my voice. They built their fairy tale on my pain. Exposing them wasn't cruelty. It was justice. Maya smiled, her grip tightening on my hand. Then you won. I nodded. Yes. I did. As for Ethan and Amanda, rumors swirled that the marriage barely survived the honeymoon. That Amanda couldn't forgive him for the deception. That Ethan spiraled, grasping at excuses, trying to rebuild an image no one trusted anymore. But their story wasn't mine anymore. I had walked out of that ballroom and into my own life again. And their ruins were theirs to live in. The truth is, revenge didn't heal me. But it freed me. Because sometimes the sweetest victory isn't in destroying someone else. It's in proving to yourself that you were never as powerless as they made you feel. That you can rise. That you can speak. That you can walk away stronger. So when I think back to that night, to the chandeliers and the gasps and the silence that followed my words, I don't hear chaos anymore. I hear victory. And I carry it with me every single day. Because Ethan Reynolds once told me I wasn't enough. But in the end I was more than enough. Enough to expose him. Enough to walk away. Enough to build a future on my own terms. And that is the ending he never saw coming.